Greetings, students. Let's take a look at Essay 3 in English 1102. See, this essay, same as the others, is 5 to 7 pages. This one, if we want to just simplify it, is really in all sense an argument. Finally, just kind of a straightforward argument paper. What we're doing here is, though, you want to look at the groups. So if you go back to, say, Essay 2, this is my sample essay 2, right? And I have all these groups here. And basically there are, I think, at least 5. Let's see how many I ended up with here. Okay, so you got the person convicted, the attorney, the trial court, appellate, innocent project, Nicole. So 6. And then I also mentioned rehabilitation programs, the parole board of parole hearings, and even the governor. But those are like I would say like 10. Well, they're like an example, like a really specific instances would require those, like I talk about in the sample. But I guess that brings. Let's see, that's another like 3. I mean, maybe my math is off. I'm not a math major, but that looks like, I don't know, maybe even up to 9 maybe different potential groups here. All right, so in essay 3, I want to focus on one of those groups. So I've brought up all these groups here. In this one, I thought of it a number of different ways. I'll explain how I went with it in a minute. I'm just like kind of conceptualizing it right now. But in a sense, that's the assignment, right? So you look back at essay 2. Essay 2, I mentioned all these groups. Here, there you go. I'm going to pick one of these. And I'm gonna write an argument tailored to that group. Compose a rhetorically tailored argument to one of the groups. So it doesn't have to be. I think at some point in the prompt, I might have called it a counter argument. It doesn't necessarily have to be like an argument against, but it could be like you'll see in one of the examples I'm going to bring up in a minute, how it's kind of like an argument to expand, like something that this group does. But that's the challenge here, right? Is to tailor everything to this specific group, and you'll see the kind of challenges even in conceptualizing this. You end up doing a lot of research, which we'll talk about in a minute. Compose a rhetorically tailored argument to one of the 5 groups you wrote about in essay 2, right? So you're going to choose one group, compose an argument specifically to that group. Using the knowledge you've gained, both about the topic and about this particular group, you want to craft the argument to be persuasive and rhetorically effective. Those are really, like, in a nutshell, the requirements. So you pick a group. That group has to be one that you wrote about in essay 2, and then you're going to write a persuasive and rhetorically effective argument to that audience. Let's see. In essay 2, I thought about writing about this water waste thing that they're doing in California as well as in Florida. In this one, I mentioned a series of groups, right? You got the county, the Florida Environmental Protection Department, the Department of Health, the Florida's Public Service Commission, the water treatment plants themselves. Right. So actually, I did kind of figure one based on this. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about this in a minute. But yeah, I did do this, as I say here. You want to consider for a minute which group would be right for the argument that you want to make. I ended up I already had an issue like in mind that I wanted to write about. Um, Honestly, it's complicated for me because I don't like many parts of the proposal. But um, I mean, you know, they're proposing in different states to save water by reusing water, which, I mean, as someone who values environmentalism, and this is some like efficiency in general, like those sound like good things, right? But then of course you learn that they're going to turn wastewater into drinking water and things like that. Maybe you've seen Bill Gates, that special on TV he did a few years ago where he drank the water on television. Um, yeah, I don't have a good scientific argument against it. It's more of just like um, it's just a feeling. So that's a very unscientific argument, right? But the one I was going to make that I think would be a much better argument, which I'll go ahead and talk about here at this point, is that, well, it's here. We'll go ahead and transition here over into the examples here. So I was thinking about writing. I drew up three different examples here. The first one here would be on the topic of filtering out forever chemicals. So that's the way I went with the wastewater thing, because I so far I can't really find a good scientific argument against it. So instead of doing that exactly, I'm going to argue that I'm going to pick out. Well, see, what I had to do is I figured out what I was going to write about first. So I figured out I wanted to write about filtering out forever chemicals. And once I got to that point, then I was able to look back at the I'm sorry. Then I was able to look, well, in my case, at the prompt. But I was able to look at my groups here, my like list of groups that I had for this topic, and then I was able to kind of look at each group and say, well, which group should I be writing to, right? Am I writing to the treatment plants themselves? I mean, no, not really, unless I'm talking about uh, some sort of pollution issue or some sort of technical issue within the plant. The Florida's Public Service Commission. I have to look up what they do. In fact, I'm not quite sure. I looked at the other ones there. The Department of Environmental Protection, which I thought about for a second, and then I thought about the topic, and I realized it's not really an environmental protection issue. The one that I'm making, you could make, say, like the not polluting of public water with forever chemicals. Obviously, that would be an environmental protection issue. I could write to them. But the argument that I want to make is about health, like how it affects everyday people. So if I'm going to make an argument like that, I should be writing to the Florida Department of Health. So that's kind of how I came to the conclusion of who I was going to write to. Actually, I had to think about the topic first, which makes sense, right? So I had to kind of narrow down and decide the topic and the direction I was going to take first, and then look at the groups and kind of figure like, okay, this is the group that's going to work with. I don't know. I don't think that's the way you have to do it. I kind of did it the opposite way the other time I conceptualized the topic, and I'll talk about that in a second. So anyway, I figured out my group. My group here would be the Florida Department of Health. I'm going to write to them and make a case for the need to filter out forever chemicals, or PFAS, regardless of their intention to make people drink filtered wastewater. So it's kind of like you're going to do this. You're going to have these treatment plants, and you're going to filter out the waste. I figure like while they're doing that, they should also filter out the forever chemicals. I mean, why not? They're right there. They could do that too. All right. So I think overall that's probably my favorite one that I came up with. Like I like that topic the best of the ones that I came up with, and I will likely be writing my essay 3 on that. The option 2 here, which more fits the paper that I did write for essay 2, was about wrongful conviction. Okay, so when I was researching this, I looked at the group NACHOL, the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, for a number of reasons. One, that they're like a civil regulatory agency and they don't have much oversight power to begin with. But I just I didn't feel like when I was writing my paper that they did enough to help fight wrongful conviction. At least not that I could see. Maybe not that I'm aware of. I'll say that. Um, but that would be my overall argument because their things seem to be more about like they bring up certain cases, maybe like you know police. I mean, I kind of talk about this in in the paper, but like police battery cases, you know, police overreaching authority cases, um, but how they are really helpful in general to cases of where they're fighting or maybe a potential wrongful conviction. I just feel like maybe they could be more help there, and that's kind of what I would write my argument about. Like, this is what your group uh, says it does, and this is what you do, and these are the ways in which I think you could be more helpful to potential cases of wrongful conviction. And then the last one there, I'll be honest, I don't like the last topic. I just put it on there because, okay, I put this one on there because, well, okay, actually, here, I'll explain how I came to it because that'll make a whole lot more sense. All right. Hopefully, we have a minute for this. I don't know that there's much time left. It's probably almost out of time. Okay. So I was looking at essay 2, right? And I looked at all these um, um, groups or people I could write to, right? Project Innocence. I think they're doing a good job. I don't have much to say to them. Convicted criminals. I don't really see that as like a group that I could tailor an argument to necessarily. Attorneys. I wasn't even sure what I would say. So like I started to think about the courts, right? So I looked at trial courts. Trial courts are where people get convicted of crimes, and you have the appeals or the appellate courts. And then I started to think about, well, one of the things one of the experts on wrongful convictions talks about capital punishment. So then I went down this rabbit hole, like, okay, so can an appellate court make a ruling about capital punishment? They can, but it doesn't have like a wide-ranging authority. And also, there are like 13 different appellate courts. So I could write to like the Ninth Appeals Court, which is like the one that represents California, Oregon, New Mexico, and a couple other places over there. Um, that could work, but it didn't seem to be the best. I noted in my paper that somewhere in here, I don't remember where, but I do mention the Supreme Court. So I figured that, okay, so I technically could maybe write to them, but then it became kind of almost like a cliche opinion piece that you'd write in a basic comp class. So I would steer you away from that one here. I'll even cross it out. I don't like it. I'll say that much. The first one is good. I would think about topics like that. So you're making a tailored argument to one group, and good luck here on essay 3.